The wind cut across the frozen valley like a blade, carrying white dust that swirled through the air and hid the mountains behind a pale curtain. Somewhere far from the warmth of any settlement, a lone woman stumbled through the snow. Her steps were slow, unsteady, as if each one took the last of her strength. She held a small bundle close to her chest, wrapped in a thin cloth that did almost nothing against the icy cold. The bundle made a weak sound, something between a cry and a whimper, and the woman pressed it tighter against her. Whispering soft words, the wind quickly stole away. She was not human. Her skin had a faint blue tint, almost glowing under the dying daylight. Her hair floated lightly around her shoulders, as if it resisted gravity, but her pain, her fear, and her desperation felt painfully familiar to anyone who knew what it meant to want to protect a child. Her breathing grew unsteady. She could not feel her legs anymore. Snow covered half her body as she fell to her knees. She looked down at the baby, whose large silver eyes blinked slowly. Its breath came out as weak steam, fading instantly. She brushed a trembling hand over the baby's cheek and gave a sad smile. "I am sorry," she whispered, her voice shaking. "My child, this world is kind to humans. Maybe one of them will be kind to you too. If I stay, if they find me, they will take you away and hurt you because of what I am." Her tears froze almost instantly on her face. She leaned forward, pressing her lips to the baby's forehead for the last time. It was not a goodbye she wanted to give, but the one she believed she had no choice but to give. Her body was shutting down. Her pursuers were close. She had no more strength to run. But the child deserved a chance to live. She placed the baby on a soft patch of snow near a rock, trying to make a small shield against the wind. She had no blanket thick enough, no shelter, nothing that could be called safe, but she had hope, and hope was all she could offer. As she stepped back, her vision blurred. She thought of turning away, letting herself fall into the snow so the cold could take her quickly. But before she could decide her own fate, she heard something, an engine, small and old, rumbling across the frozen ground. A human man named Daniel Burke guided his snow truck through the narrow white valley. He did not expect anyone to be out there. He worked as a supply runner between small settlements in the north, delivering food and medicine. Humans avoided this path in the middle of winter because the storms were harsh and the road was nearly invisible. But Daniel knew the land well. He had lost count of how many times he had helped travelers stuck in the cold or guided lost hikers to safety. He was a quiet man, living most of his life alone since his parents passed. He did not search for adventure or danger, but danger sometimes found him anyway. Today, he only wanted to complete his route before nightfall. The reports said a storm was coming, stronger than any before. As he drove, something strange caught his attention. A faint movement near a rock. At first, he thought it was just snow blowing in the wind. But a sound followed a small, thin cry. He pressed the brakes at once. The snow truck slid a little before stopping. He pushed open the door, letting a burst of cold air hit his face, and stepped outside. His boots sank deep into the snow. He narrowed his eyes, trying to see past the falling flakes. The cry came again, soft but filled with fear. "Is someone there?" Daniel called out. The only answer was the storm building in the distance. He hurried forward, bending low against the wind. When he finally reached the rock, his heart nearly stopped. There, half buried in snow, was a small baby wrapped in thin cloth, its skin a color he had never seen before. For a moment, shock held him still. But then the baby let out another desperate, weak cry, and his instincts pushed everything else aside. Hey, I've got you," he whispered, as he lifted the tiny body into his arms. The baby's skin was ice cold. Too cold. No human child could survive like this. And even if this child was not human, it was dying. Daniel pulled off his thick coat and wrapped it tightly around the baby, holding it against his chest so his body heat wouldn't escape. The child's breathing steadied slightly, but remained dangerously shallow. "Where is your mother?" he murmured, looking around the empty valley. He did not expect an answer, but he got one. A weak figure collapsed not far away, sinking into the snow. Daniel gasped and ran toward her. When he reached her, he realized she was the most unusual being he had ever seen. She had the figure of a woman, but her skin shimmered like frost, and her eyes, half open, glowed faintly. She looked at him with confusion at first, then fear, then relief as she saw her baby still alive in his hands. "You, human," she whispered, barely able to speak. "Take him. Please. Save him." Daniel kneeled beside her. "We need to get all of you out of the cold. You both need help." She shook her head slowly. "I cannot go. They are chasing me. If you take me, they will follow. But the child, he has no blame. He should live." Daniel's jaw tightened. He did not understand what she meant, but he understood the important part. She had given up hope for herself, but not for her baby. "No," he said firmly. "I'm not leaving you. I won't let anyone die out here." Her eyes widened slightly. She seemed surprised by the determination in his voice, as if she had not expected a human to speak so boldly for a stranger, especially a stranger like her who did not belong to this world. "You don't know what danger you invite," she whispered. "That's fine," Daniel replied. "I know what it means to help someone who needs it. And right now, you need it." The woman's strength was fading rapidly. He lifted her carefully, supporting most of her weight, guiding her toward the snow truck. She tried to speak, but only weak breaths came out. When they reached the door, Daniel placed the baby carefully on the seat, wrapped in his coat, then helped the woman climb inside. He pushed blankets over both of them and started the engine again, turning the truck's heater to full. The woman watched him, her eyes softening. "Why?" she asked. "Because nobody should die alone in the snow," he said simply. The truck rumbled forward, carving a path through the thickening wind. The storm had begun, dark clouds swallowing the sky, and snowflakes hitting the windshield like tiny stars. Daniel could barely see anything outside. He checked the baby, its breathing was faint but still moving. Then he checked the woman. Her eyes were closing again. "Stay with me," he said. "We're going to the shelter. They can help you." But she shook her head weakly. "They cannot. I am not like you. I am from the sky. If humans find me, they may fear me. They may fear my child." Daniel frowned. "I don't care where you're from. You need help. That's all." She looked at him for a long moment, her expression filled with something deep, something grateful. No words came, but he saw the emotion clearly. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed across the valley. The ground trembled. Daniel looked through the windshield and saw bright lights in the sky, 3 glowing shapes descending fast. They were not ships built by humans. Their movement was too smooth, too silent, too perfect. The woman's body tensed with fear. "They found me," she whispered. "Please, keep the child safe. Even if I do not survive, protect him." Daniel gripped the steering wheel tightly. His heart pounded, but he did not slow down. "No one is taking your baby," he said. "Not while I'm here." The lights behind them grew brighter. Snow burst upward as something touched down on the ground. The truck shook again. Daniel pushed the engine as hard as it could go, but the storm made everything harder. Visibility dropped. Ice formed along the wheels. He felt the truck sliding. The woman reached for his arm, her fingers cold but steady. "You are brave, for a human." "I'm just doing what anyone should do," he replied. "No," she whispered. "Not anyone. Only someone with a good heart." Daniel didn't answer. His focus was on keeping all 3 of them alive. But her words stayed with him, warming something inside him that even the heater could not reach. The baby stirred slightly. Daniel heard its soft cry. He felt a surge of determination. He had no idea who the glowing ships belonged to or why they were chasing this woman, but he knew he could not let her or the child fall into their hands. The storm thickened to a blinding wall of white, hiding them for a moment. Daniel turned sharply, guiding the truck toward an old abandoned tunnel carved into the side of the mountain, one he knew from years of traveling these lands. It wasn't stable, but it was shelter. And right now, shelter meant survival. He drove inside just as a bright beam of light flashed across the valley behind them. They were hidden. For now. Daniel checked both passengers again. The woman was barely conscious. The baby rested against her chest, calmer now. Daniel placed another blanket over them and sat close, letting the warmth from his jacket extend to both. "You're safe," he whispered. "At least for tonight." The woman opened her eyes one last time. There was pain, fear, and exhaustion, but also hope. "You saved us," she breathed. "Human, thank you." Then her eyes closed, not from death, but from reaching the limit of her strength. Daniel looked out at the glowing lights searching the stormy valley. He felt fear, but he also felt something stronger, a promise forming in his heart. He would protect them, no matter who or what came for them next. The old mountain tunnel was quiet, except for the distant howl of the storm outside. Daniel sat close to the alien woman and her baby, keeping the small space warm with the heater from his snow truck. The air inside smelled like metal and dust, but it was far better than freezing winds. The woman lay half unconscious, her breathing slow but steady, while the baby rested peacefully on her chest, wrapped in Daniel's coat. For a long moment, Daniel simply watched them, trying to understand what world he had stepped into. He had never seen anything like the glowing ships outside, nor anyone with skin that shimmered like ice. Everything in his life before this moment felt small, normal, predictable. But now, he was hiding from something not of Earth. He felt fear in his stomach, but when he looked at the baby, the fear slowly changed into something else, a firm decision. He didn't know why this woman had been hunted, but the way she held the child told him she was not dangerous. She was a mother trying to protect her baby. That was all he needed to know. The woman slowly opened her eyes. Her silver pupils reflected the small light coming from the heater. For a moment, she looked confused, as if she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw Daniel sitting beside her. "You brought us here," she said, in a weak voice. "We didn't have many choices," Daniel replied. "The storm was too strong, and those lights were too close." She closed her eyes, remembering the danger. "They will keep searching. They do not give up easily." Daniel leaned his back against the cold tunnel wall. "Who are they?" For a moment she didn't answer. She touched her baby's cheek softly, making sure he was still warm. Only after confirming his breathing was steady did she look at Daniel. "They are soldiers of my own people," she whispered. "I am, or I was, part of a royal house. My child is important to them. They want him. Not to love him. Not to protect him. They want him for power." Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. "So they want to take your baby away?" She nodded painfully. "Yes. And if they take him, his life will not be a life. It will be a burden he must carry until he breaks." Daniel looked at the baby again. Such a small, fragile thing. "But why chase you? Why come all the way to Earth?" "Because I refused to let them take him. I escaped. I ran. And I hoped Earth was far enough for them to stop." Daniel shook his head slowly. "It wasn't far enough." "No," she whispered. "But you found us before they did. That means something." Daniel didn't know what she meant. But the way she looked at him made him feel responsible in a strange, deep way. He had always tried to help whoever he could. But this was more than a rescue. This was becoming a battle for lives. The baby made a soft sound, moving slightly. The woman smiled and shifted her arms to hold him more comfortably. Her face softened, and she whispered something to him, in a language Daniel did not understand. It sounded musical, and full of love. "What's his name?" Daniel asked quietly. The woman hesitated. His true name would reveal too much. "But I called him Lior while hiding. It means small light in our old tongue." Daniel smiled. "Lior? That's a good name." The woman nodded. "He is the last good thing I have." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. "You have more good things now," he he said gently. You have help. She watched him closely, trying to understand his character. You risk much for someone you met only minutes before. Daniel shrugged lightly. I've lived alone for many years. Saving lives is the only part of my work that makes me feel like it matters. And you needed me. She looked at him as if weighing his words carefully. Not many of your kind would risk themselves for a stranger, especially one like me. Maybe, Daniel replied softly. But I'm not asking what others would do. I'm asking what I should do. The woman breathed out slowly, calm for the first time. My name is Illyra, she said. If you are risking your life for us, you should know my name. It suits you, Daniel said, offering a small smile. Illyra. A faint warmth spread across her expression, something like relief or gratitude. Outside, the wind began to slow. The storm was calming. Daniel stood, walked carefully to the tunnel mouth, and peeked through the swirling snow. The glowing ships were still in the sky, moving slowly, scanning for signs of life. Their lights shifted, sweeping across the valley like search beams. They're still out there, he said quietly. Illyra tried to sit up but winced. You must not let them see any energy source. Their sensors detect warmth and movement. Daniel nodded. Then we'll wait a bit longer before moving. The storm is our cover right now. He turned off the truck engine but kept only the small emergency heater near them. It produced barely enough warmth to keep them alive, but not enough for the ships to detect from a distance. Illyra leaned her head back, looking exhausted. I did not think I would survive the day, she whispered. I was ready to give my last breath to make sure Lior survived. Daniel sat beside her again. I'm glad you didn't. Illyra looked at him. And for a moment, her eyes softened in a way that made Daniel feel like she saw more of him than most people ever had. You saved me, without knowing anything about me. You could have walked away. Daniel shook his head. I couldn't leave a mother and her child in the snow. No one deserves that. You are different from the humans our stories described, she murmured. Daniel raised an eyebrow. What do your stories say? That humans are unpredictable, Illyra said. Dangerous, quick to fight, quick to fear. Daniel laughed lightly. Some of us are like that. But not all. And I try not to be. Illyra watched him again, more thoughtfully. Maybe your world is not as cruel as I believed. Daniel didn't answer. He looked at her wrapped in the blanket, holding the tiny Lior close against her. The sight stirred something deep and protective in him. The storm outside quieted even more. The lights of the ships drifted away for the moment, moving toward another valley. The danger was not gone, but there was a small window to escape. Daniel took a breath. We need to move before the ships return to this area. There's a hidden shelter 2 hours from here, built into the cliffs. It's small, but strong. We'll be safe there. Illyra tightened her grip around her baby. I can walk. Daniel shook his head. You're still weak. I will not slow you, she insisted. I didn't say you would. I'm saying you don't have to, Daniel replied firmly. I'll help you. His kindness shook her again. She wasn't used to someone caring about her comfort. Her own people valued strength, not tenderness. She nodded slowly. Thank you. Daniel helped her into the truck again. Lior was wrapped warmly and placed gently in her arms. Illyra whispered little soothing words to him, trying to keep him calm as Daniel restarted the engine. The truck's wheels struggled through deep snow, but Daniel knew every path in the valley. He followed narrow routes hidden by trees, avoiding open areas where the ship's lights could reach. Illyra watched him drive with impressive skill. You know this land very well. I've lived here all my life, Daniel replied. The mountains raised me, in a way. Do humans not fear such cold places? She asked. Some do, Daniel said with a small smile. But I don't mind the quiet. Illyra looked at him longer, as if trying to understand what kind of human he was. A human who lived alone, who risked everything for strangers, who faced glowing alien ships with nothing but determination. Her people believed humans were simple beings, but this one was far from simple. As they drove, Lior began to make soft noises. Alira rocked him gently, humming a tune from her home world. The sound was soft, warm, and almost magical. Daniel listened quietly, feeling strangely comforted by it. "What does the song mean?" he asked. "It is a lullaby," she said. "It means, you are loved beyond the stars." Daniel felt a stir in his chest. "He's lucky to have you." Alira looked down at her baby, love shining through her tired eyes. "No. I am lucky to have him. He kept me alive when I wanted to give up." Her honesty caught Daniel off guard. He glanced at her, seeing strength wrapped in pain, courage wrapped in exhaustion. A bright flash suddenly lit the sky behind them. Alira gasped. "They found our trail again." Daniel gripped the wheel and accelerated. The engine roared as the truck pushed through the snowbanks. He turned sharply into a narrow passage between two cliffs. Alira held Lior tightly as the truck bounced over icy ground. "They are coming closer." "I see them," Daniel said, his voice steady even though his heart pounded. A glowing beam swept over the cliff behind them, missing the truck by only a few meters. The air hummed with strange energy. Daniel pushed the engine harder. They reached a steep incline leading to the hidden shelter. The truck struggled but climbed slowly. "Almost there," Daniel muttered. A second beam shot across the sky. Alira closed her eyes, whispering a desperate prayer. Daniel slammed his hand against the dashboard. "Come on, old friend. Don't fail me now." The truck lunged forward with a burst of strength. They reached a high ledge, and Daniel steered toward a dark opening hidden behind heavy branches. The truck entered the cave just as another beam flashed behind them. Safe again. For now. Daniel turned off the engine and caught his breath. His hands shook slightly from the adrenaline. Alira held her baby, breathing fast but safe. She looked at Daniel, her eyes shining. "You saved us again," she whispered. Daniel smiled faintly. "I said I wouldn't let anything happen to you." Alira watched him as if seeing him in a new light. "Humans truly are full of surprises." Daniel leaned forward. "And I'm not done surprising you yet." Because now he had a new promise inside him. He would protect Alira and her child, no matter what it cost. The quiet inside the cave felt almost unreal after the chaos outside. Daniel listened to the distant hum of the alien ships as they searched the valley. But the sound slowly faded. The rocky walls around them were strong and thick, hiding their body heat and blocking most signals. Daniel had used this cave in the past to rest during storms or store supplies, but he had never imagined it would become a hiding place for an alien mother and her child. Alira held Lior close, rocking him gently. The baby was calm, his breath warm and steady against her chest. A soft smile touched Alira's lips each time he moved. It was clear she drew her strength from him, but she was still weak, still exhausted from her escape, and she leaned her body against the cave wall, as if holding herself upright took effort. Daniel checked the entrance before returning to them. "They seem to be moving away for now," he said quietly. "For now," Alira repeated, her voice heavy with worry. "They will return. They know I am somewhere in this region. And they do not give up." Daniel sat across from her, his back against the rock. "Then we stay hidden until morning. I know paths deeper in the mountains where their ships can't fly. I can take you there." Alira studied him, her silver eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "You do not have to keep risking yourself for us." Daniel shook his head. "I'm not leaving you or the baby. I'm in this now." Alira lowered her gaze for a moment. "Humans are not expected to protect those outside their own kind," she said quietly. "Yet you do." "Why?" Daniel thought for a moment before answering. "Because I've been alone for a long time, and helping people, helping you, it feels like the right thing to do." He paused, then added softly, "And because I couldn't live with myself if something happened to you or Lior while I could have helped." Her eyes lifted again, filled with a gentle warmth. "You have a strong heart, Daniel Burke." He smiled a little. "Maybe, or maybe I'm just stubborn. Perhaps both," she said, and for the first time since he had met her, she laughed softly. The sound was light and warm, surprising even her. Lior made a small chirping sound in response, and Elira kissed the top of his head. Daniel looked at the baby, then back at Elira. So, what happens if your people catch you? Elira's expression darkened. If they take me back, I will be punished. But more importantly, they will take Lior away and raise him for political purposes. They will shape him into a weapon of power. He will lose everything that makes him a child. Everything that makes him a person. Daniel clenched his jaw. I won't let that happen. You say that so easily, Elira whispered. But you do not understand how powerful they are. Daniel leaned forward. Maybe I don't. But power doesn't decide everything. I've faced storms, wild animals, bandits, and harsh winters. I'm still here. And now that you're with me, I'm not backing down. Elira watched him closely, her breath catching slightly. In her culture, strength was measured by ability, intelligence, and sharp decisions. But Daniel's strength came from something different. A stubborn kindness, a grounded heart. A willingness to stand in front of danger for people he barely knew. That was a kind of strength her people did not understand, but she admired it deeply. The small heater crackled and flickered. Elira pulled the blanket tighter around Lior. Daniel took off his outer jacket and placed it around her shoulders without asking. She looked at him with surprise. You will be cold, she said softly. I've been through worse, he said with a reassuring smile. Elira lowered her eyes, touched by the simple gesture. In my world, she said quietly, someone who gives warmth to another is seen as offering a piece of their spirit. Daniel chuckled softly. Well, take as much spirit as you need. I've got plenty. Her cheeks turned a soft shade of violet, the alien version of a blush, though she tried to hide it by focusing on Lior. Hours passed. The night deepened. The hum of the alien ships faded, until the only sound left was the soft breathing of the baby. Daniel stayed awake, keeping watch. Elira drifted into sleep at last, her head resting gently on Daniel's shoulder without her realizing it. He did not move. He did not want to disturb her or the little one sleeping on her chest. As she slept, Daniel found himself studying her features. She looked peaceful, almost fragile in the dim light, but he remembered the way she had trudged through the snow with fierce determination despite her exhaustion. She was stronger than she seemed. Morning finally touched the edges of the cave with a faint blue glow. Daniel gently shifted so Elira could sit more comfortably. She stirred, slowly opening her eyes. You didn't sleep, she murmured. I'll sleep when we reach somewhere safe, he replied. A worried look crossed her face. You cannot stay awake forever. No, Daniel said softly. But I can stay awake long enough to get you both to safety. Elira looked at him with gratitude written clearly on her face. She held Lior closer and nodded. Then we should move before the ships return. Daniel packed the heater, the blankets, and the little food he had left. Elira handed Lior to him for a moment, and Daniel held the baby carefully. Lior's tiny hands curled around Daniel's finger, and Daniel felt a strange warmth spread through him. He likes you, Elira said softly. He's a strong little guy, Daniel replied with a gentle smile. Elira watched Daniel with a growing feeling she couldn't explain. In her world, trust was rare. But here, hiding in a cold mountain cave with a human man, she felt something she had not felt in a long time: safety. They stepped out of the cave carefully. The valley was bright with the morning sun reflecting off the snow. For a moment, the scene was peaceful, almost beautiful, but Daniel's eyes scanned the sky, searching for any signs of the glowing ships. Clear for now, he said. Let's move. He led the way along a narrow path hidden behind rocks. Elira stayed close behind him, holding Lior tightly. The air was cold but not as brutal as the night before. Daniel kept checking the sky every minute. After about an hour of walking, they reached a wide ridge overlooking the next valley. Daniel pointed to a series of tall rocks near a cliff. There's a shelter built by old miners beyond those rocks. It's deep underground, stable, hard to detect. Elira nodded. But her eyes suddenly widened as something in the distance caught her attention. Daniel, look, 3 glowing ships emerged from the clouds. They were moving fast, heading straight toward the ridge. Daniel's heart jumped. "Run! Stay low!" They rushed across the snow as one of the ships shined a scanning beam over the valley. Illyra shielded the baby with her body while Daniel placed himself between her and the direction of the ships, acting like a human wall. A sharp hum filled the air. Daniel knew they were seconds away from being detected. He grabbed Illyra's hand. "This way." They slid down a steep slope, half running, half falling into a cluster of thick pine trees below. The trees provided some cover, but the ships were closing in. Illyra held Lior tight, whispering calming sounds to him even though fear shook her whole body. Daniel pressed a finger to his lips to keep her quiet. A beam of light swept over the trees, passing dangerously close. Daniel and Illyra crouched low, barely breathing. For a moment, everything froze, then the beam drifted away. Daniel let out a slow breath. "We need to hide in the mine. Now." They hurried through the trees until they reached the cluster of tall rocks. Behind them was a narrow opening, almost invisible to the eye. Daniel pushed aside the snow and guided Illyra inside. The passage led down into a dark, hidden shelter carved decades ago. It was cold and dusty, but safe. Illyra set Lior down on a soft cloth. Daniel spread out. The baby reached up with tiny hands, touching Illyra's face. She smiled warmly and lifted him. Daniel watched them with relief. "We made it." Illyra turned to him. "Only because of you." Daniel shook his head. "No, because we worked together." She stepped closer to him, her expression serious but full of emotion. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." "You don't owe me anything," Daniel said softly. Illyra looked at him with intensity. "You saved my life. You saved my child. You gave us hope when I had none." Daniel felt something deep shift inside him. "I didn't save you for a reward. I saved you because it was right." Illyra's voice softened, almost trembling. "Then know this, Daniel Burke. If I live, if Lior lives, it is because of your courage." Daniel glanced away, almost shy. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," Illyra whispered. "Not anyone. Only you." She reached out and gently placed her hand on his. Daniel froze, surprised by how warm her touch felt even in the cold cave. Illyra held his gaze. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Daniel nodded, feeling a strange sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. "Together," he agreed. Outside, the alien ships circled restlessly, unable to find their targets. Inside the mine, a human, an alien mother, and her tiny child sat close, bound now not by fear, but by trust. Their journey was far from over. But for the first time, Illyra and Lior were not running alone. They had Daniel. And Daniel had found something he didn't even know he was missing, a purpose worth fighting for.